All right, let's talk about the invisible code that's running our world right now. I'm talking about the public disorder laws that basically keep our society from blue screening. This is society's operating system.
You ever just stop and think about it? How do millions of us, with all our different goals and tempers, manage to get through the day without everything just falling apart? What's really keeping our world from dissolving into pure chaos? Well, it's a lot more than just being polite. It's a whole legal framework working behind the scenes.
So, let's run with this idea. Think of society as the most complex computer ever built. Well, these laws we're talking about, they're like its essential anti-crash software. They're that program humming away in the background, constantly scanning for threats and errors to make sure the entire system of public peace doesn't just freeze and shut down.
Okay, so here's the game plan for today. First, we'll get a handle on this whole society's operating system idea. Then, we're going to dive into some specific error codes, the social fire alarm, what I call information polluters, those annoying neighbor offenses, and even what happens when you try to break the justice game itself. And finally, we'll tally up the total price of all this chaos.
All right, let's get into it. Section 1, Society's Operating System. Before we start troubleshooting specific bugs in the code, we really need to understand the basic architecture of the system itself. This is all about the foundational rules that let us all live together without, well, chaos.
Okay, this is absolutely fundamental. Pretty much every offense you can think of has two key building blocks. You've got the actus reus. That's just a fancy Latin way of saying the guilty act. It's what you did, the physical action. Then you have the mens rea, the guilty mind. This is why you did it, your intention, your mindset. And here's the kicker. For something to be a crime, you almost always need both.
So, to keep things clear as we go through these laws, we're going to use the same four-part toolkit every single time. We'll ask, 1, what's the specific action that's not allowed? 2, what was the person's mindset or intention? 3, why is this a big deal? What's the harm to society? And 4, what are the consequences? What's the penalty? Simple, right? Let's go.
All right, first up, Article 153. I want you to think of this one as society's fire alarm. It's the legal system designed to go off when there's a serious threat to public peace, the kind of threat that could burn the whole house down if we don't act fast. And we're not just talking about a little bit of smoke or noise here, we're talking about real, existential threats to our social order.
So, let's deconstruct this thing. We'll look at what sets off the alarm in the first place, what happens when you add fuel to the fire, what kind of damage we're trying to prevent, and of course, what happens to the person who started it.
So what are we actually talking about here? Well, it covers a few things. First, causing a serious disturbance in public places. Think concerts, rallies, you name it. Second, straight up interrupting or messing with a peaceful meeting. Third, and this is a big one, trying to incite rebellion or sedition with signs or slogans. And finally, there's this really specific one, conducting a pompous burial for someone who is legally executed. It sounds strange, but it's seen as a direct middle finger to the state's authority.
And I really gotta stress that word serious. The law isn't interested in minor annoyances. Look, someone playing their music too loud in the park, that's rude, for sure, but it's not what this is about. But a massive brawl breaking out that shuts down a whole festival and sends people running in panic, that's a serious disturbance. That's the level of chaos this law is designed to prevent.
Now, the law has a special term for when a disturbance goes from bad to catastrophic. It's called a tumultuous disturbance. And this isn't just a fancy adjective, it has a very, very specific legal meaning. Think of it as throwing gasoline on the fire. It completely changes the game.
So what's the difference? A regular, serious disturbance is all about the impact, the chaos it causes. It could be one person or 100 unarmed people. But it becomes tumultuous when the character of that group changes. The second you have more than 3 people who are armed or have something that can be used as a weapon, boom, the legal equation just completely flips.
Yeah, that's right, more than 3. So 4 or more armed people. And that number isn't just pulled out of a hat. The law looks at a group like that and no longer sees just a few individuals. It sees an organized threat. It's the legal tipping point where random trouble becomes a coordinated assault on public order.
And let's be clear about the harm we're trying to prevent here. This isn't just about things being too loud or people getting into arguments. No, this is about the entire fabric of public safety unraveling. When you get to the point of inciting rebellion, you're not just making a scene, you're attacking the very stability of the government. This law is here to protect the foundation our peaceful society is built on.
Okay, check out how the penalties scale up. It tells you everything about what the law considers most dangerous. That pompous burial? You're looking at maybe up to 30 days. Inciting rebellion? Up to 6 months.
But a serious disturbance, that jumps all the way up to over 2 years. And then, if that disturbance is tumultuous, with our armed group of 4 or more, the penalty skyrockets. We're talking up to 6 years. The message from the legal system is crystal clear. Organized, armed chaos is the biggest threat of all.
Okay, moving on. We've talked about physical chaos. Now let's talk about a different kind. Information chaos. We're diving into Article 154, and I call these the information polluters. These are the folks who release toxic lies and misinformation into the public sphere. And trust me, that can be just as damaging as any riot.
You know that old quote from Jonathan Swift? Falsehood flies and the truth comes limping after it? It's so true, right? A lie spreads like wildfire. Well, Article 154 is basically the law's attempt to trip up that lie, to give the truth at least a fighting chance by going after the people who knowingly set that fire.
So what kind of information pollution are we talking about? The law zeroes in on a few key things. First, publishing straight-up fake news that could endanger public order or harm the state. Second, using speeches or publications to encourage people to break the law. Third, publishing official government documents when you're not allowed to. And fourth, printing or passing around anonymous stuff, basically so you can cause trouble without anyone knowing who you are.
Now, this is super important. The law is not out to get you for an honest mistake. Your mindset, that mens rea we talked about, is everything here. We're talking about malice. To get convicted, a prosecutor has to prove you knew what you were publishing was false and you did it specifically to cause chaos or harm. It's the difference between an accidental typo in an article and deliberately engineering a lie to start a panic. It's sabotage, not a simple error.
And the harm this law is trying to prevent? It's huge. It's systemic. We're not talking about hurt feelings or someone's personal reputation. That's what libel and slander laws are for. No, this is about protecting the whole community, the entire system. We're talking about false news that can wreck a country's financial credit, spark widespread panic, and just completely destroy the public's trust in the people and institutions that are supposed to keep things running.
So what's the price for this kind of information pollution? Well, you'll notice it's pretty consistent across the board. For any of these offenses, spreading fake news, encouraging disobedience, whatever, you're looking at 1 to 6 months behind bars plus a fine. And that tells you something interesting, right? It shows that the legal system views the harm from all these different acts as roughly equivalent.
Okay, we've covered the system-crashing viruses. Now let's talk about the legal equivalent of annoying pop-up ads. We're moving on to Article 155, which I like to call the annoying neighbor offenses. These are the things that don't really threaten the whole state, but man, they can definitely ruin your peace and quiet.
And you'll probably recognize these right away. We're talking about things like discharging firecrackers or other things that go bang and cause alarm. Participating in really disorderly meetings. There's even an old term in here, charivari, which is basically when a group gets together to make a ton of noise to harass someone. And of course, the classics, disturbing the peace at night or being drunk and causing a scene in public.
Really, the core issue here is simple. It's all about disrupting public tranquility. And the mindset is different too. Usually, the person isn't acting with malice trying to bring down the government. It's just recklessness. They're not trying to start a revolution. They just aren't thinking about how their loud party at 3 a.m. is affecting everyone else on the block.
And as you'd expect, the penalty is way lower because the harm is smaller. For these annoying neighbor offenses, the punishment is what's called arresto minor. In plain English, that's anywhere from just 1 day up to 30 days in jail, or maybe just a fine. It sends a pretty simple message, doesn't it? Your right to party ends where everyone else's right to a good night's sleep begins.
All right, for our last deep dive, we're looking at what happens when you decide to attack the justice system itself. Think about it. If the law is a game we all agree to play by, then freeing a prisoner isn't just breaking a rule. It's like flipping the entire game board over. It's a direct assault on the whole system.
So, let's break this one down. What's the act? Helping someone escape. How does the way you do it matter? A lot, it turns out. And what's the big deal? Well, the harm goes way beyond just one person getting away.
The law draws a really bright line here, depending on how the escape happens. On one side, you've got the heavy stuff, using violence, intimidation, bribing a guard. These are seen as aggressive, direct attacks on the system. But on the other side, you have escapes using other means, which could be something as simple as a sympathetic person leaving a door unlocked. Much less aggressive, but still illegal.
And why is this such a big deal? Because it's not just about one person escaping. It's a direct attack on the authority and integrity of the whole justice system. When someone is lawfully imprisoned, that's the system's final word. Helping them escape is like saying that final word means nothing. It undermines the entire process and, of course, can put the public back at risk.
Look at how the penalties reflect the method. If you use violence or bribery for the escape, you could be facing more than 2 years in prison. If you use those other means, like leaving a door unlocked, it's much less, more like 1 to 6 months. There's even a special rule for surprise attacks outside of a jail. It's clear as day. The more aggressive and confrontational the act, the more severe the punishment.
Okay, we've debugged the individual error codes. Now it's time for a final system check. Let's pull it all together and look at the total price of chaos by seeing how all these different offenses stack up against each other.
This table really tells the whole story. It lays out the system's priorities perfectly. Down at the bottom, low severity, you have the alarms and scandals, your annoying neighbor stuff. In the middle, you've got unlawful publications. Then things get serious. Both aiding a prisoner escape and causing a serious disturbance are rated high. But what's at the very top, the very high threat? The tumultuous disturbance. The law is telling us loud and clear that an armed group creating chaos is the single greatest threat to public order.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that these laws, this operating system, are doing something incredibly difficult. They're constantly trying to find the right balance between our individual freedoms and our shared collective need for a peaceful and orderly society. It's not just about punishment. It's about making sure the whole system can function for everyone. And that leaves us with a really tough but crucial question to think about. This entire legal framework is designed to prevent chaos. But a healthy, evolving society needs dissent. It needs protest. It needs challenging voices. So the ultimate balancing act, the question that never really goes away, is this: how do we protect public order without accidentally silencing the very dissent that pushes us to be better?